Hey guys, it's Richie theWizKid here from the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and I'm here to talk to you about PopThreads.com, your number one source for finding awesome nerdy t-shirts. Are you sick from not knowing what to wear when you go out with all your friends on the weekends? Well, don't have a cow, man. Go to PopThreads.com, and if you use the code Simpsons at checkout, you can save 15% on all your t-shirt needs.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and we've got yet another great episode in Season 4 to talk about, and we've got a great guest. But first, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie theWizKid. How are you today, Rich?
I'm ready for the weekend today, honestly. I can't believe I have to come into work today. This is bullshit.
Got to accommodate around our guest, brother.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this one. This one is an episode I know we both remember fondly, and I assume our guest did as well. So we're not going to waste any time. As usual, I'll throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the master whacker. It is Miles.
So our guest today, I said is special. What I really meant is the circumstances of him coming are special, because this is going to be our first time ever to have a four-peat guest making an appearance in each of the 4 seasons that we covered so far. For this man, every day is whacking day. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Andrew Briseño. How the hell are you, buddy?
Gentlemen, how are you? It is so nice to be back on the program. I'm so happy to be your special guest, or I guess technically unspecial, because it's more often than anybody else. But it's always
Literally?
Yeah, literally, not very special.
You're just a gimmick at this point.
Indeed, but it is so nice to be back here and to be discussing a classic Simpsons episode, if I dare say so myself.
Oh, you borrowed that from Miles.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the episode Whacking Day today, which you cherry-picked all the way back from, like, the beginning of Season 3. You're like, I want this episode. And that's kind of interesting, because it's been a really long time since you've been on the show. The last time you were here was for Bart the Murderer, all the way at the beginning of Season 3, and you picked an episode all the way at the end of Season 4, so I feel like we haven't talked in a really long time.
Yeah, I know. You guys have all grown up now. You're only doing one episode. I hear you guys are moving in a positive direction around there.
Hey, you know what? I think we were on the Fans Podcast last time you were on the show, and we are now at bestdarndiddly.com.
Ooh.
Quick cheap plug there for you.
Classy. bestdarndiddly.com.
I actually wanted to ask you, seeing as you've seen one episode every season of the show of The Simpsons, you've seen the improvement in show and quality. What can you say about the improvement of our show since the way back in Season 1 till now?
You would have to listen to it first.
Oh,
I did listen to half an episode that I was on, and I had to say I was great. First off, clever, insightful.
Thank you for carrying us through those.
Yeah,
I'm really
happy to be there. And you guys were all right too. You were there.
We have you marked down for about 75% of this episode, so I hope you're willing to do some work.
I mean, it is Wacky Day, so we do want you to take the full load here.
And on that note, let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. Whacking Day debuted on April 29th, 1993.
I was 9.
Yeah, I'm 3rd grade at the time. That's right on the money right there.
Yeah, 8 for me as well. Or I'm actually going to be turning 8 here in September of that year, so I was only 7 at this time. The chalkboard gag on this one was, I will return the seeing eye dog, which, again, Simpsons did it being Simpsons, because they actually go back and use this in a future episode where Santa's little helper actually becomes a seeing eye dog. And
Laddie?
Talking about Laddie, exactly. On this one, the couch gag was they all run in, and instead of a couch, we just see a tiny little chair that they somehow squeeze onto without crushing Maggie, probably because she's magical.
She does start at the bottom of that pile and then just instantly rise to the top. But that is nowhere near the most magical thing that Maggie's going to do by the end of this episode.
Not anywhere near.
No.
We also have a first appearance. We haven't had one of these in a while, actually, but this is the first appearance of a very funny character, Superintendent, later to be known as Super Nintendo Chalmers.
This is really his first appearance?
This is his first appearance in the series.
Tommy. I love
thought
Tommy.
we talked about him a lot.
I believe they've mentioned him, but I don't think he's actually ever... I think they've, alluded to the idea of a superintendent. I'm speculating here, but this is according to not only IMDb, but the director's commentary, that this was his first appearance.
Wow.
I felt the same way. I was like, surely we've talked about him, but now that I cannot think of a single episode he's appeared in.
Skinner!
We open up on Springfield Elementary School as they're gearing up for a surprise visit from I guess not a surprise visit, just a visit from Superintendent Chalmers.
You almost said Super Nintendo, didn't you?
I did almost say Super Nintendo. That's exactly what I
It's
did.
the grown version of Ralph.
There's a big, huge mess that they all have to clean up, but first, a special announcement. 3 lucky students have won a special prize. Bart Simpson, Jimbo Jones, and Nelson Muntz are asked to report to Basement B where they can pick up their prize, a brand new mountain bike.
Which, if only 3 of them were mentioned, how come Dolph and Kearney are there as well?
They just go wherever Jimbo goes, I guess.
Yeah.
They guess they're going to all 3 ride on his bike.
They can't animate them separately at this point in time.
It was just cheaper to keep them as a group.
Yeah. Of course, this is just a ruse. Skinner wanted to get these 3 out of the way, or 5, I should say, out of the way so that they would not be able to interfere with the superintendent's visit.
But then Skinner actually gives it away, though, because he still has the mic on.
I love that part. During the announcement, he starts saying, "These fools." Ha 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 ha.
That is an amazing
is this
Glenn
on?
laugh. And
Yes.
like top notch, has to be noted. And I just really love how Bart is like, "Oh, hey, do you think we should make anything a fool's comment?" And they're like, "Shut up, dude, mountain bike."
What do you make
Which,
of that fool remark?
kids these days might not remember, but having a mountain bike in 1993 would pretty much mean that you were in charge.
Oh yeah, that was some boss level shit right there.
Exactly. Particularly if it was a mongoose, then you were just off the chains.
I was just happy with anything with 10 speeds, man. That was where the cutoff of cool was.
That is true. That is true. If you did not have multiple gears, you were a total hoser.
Exactly. I love this whole little bit, though, when Skinner traps these kids in the basement. He locks them away, and then there's this great bit with him and Willie where Skinner's like, "Do you think society would judge me if I threw away the key?"
Nah, the PTA would tear you a new arse.
Very good cancel as usual, William, but you didn't have to add the swearing.
And then I wrote this down. You bath-taking, underpants-wearing lily hugger. That is the best way to insult someone from now on. For the rest of my life. Anytime, you bath-taking, underpants-wearing motherfucker, fuck you. It's so confusing. They're so off guard. It works in so many different ways.
I like it because Skinner says, you don't need the potty talk, so he literally disses him by not using potty talk. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's true.
And speaking of potty talk, inside the room that they're locked in, which is a very convenient civil defense shelter, which, I don't know, there actually was one of those at my elementary school, so whatever. But, there's clearly in the background, there are these 55-gallon drums labeled chem toilet. What the hell is in that? I'm so terrified. 2 of them are leaking. I paid too much attention to this, obviously.
Oh, no, there's always great stuff like that going on in the background of these scenes, so very, very good notice.
Hey, Skinner's old school, man. He's Army.
This is true. As you can see, because he, dropped from the roof. Predator.
Yeah.
For literal no reason.
Yeah, he could have just been on the other side of the door for all we care.
He gets these 3 out of the way so he can give the superintendent a tour. I like this bit too, actually, because they're discussing the downfall, essentially, of the public school system, saying things like, "Yeah, we're having to drop geography. It turns out that kids are testing poorly, and it was just kind of becoming somewhat of an embarrassment," which, that hits a little bit true, hits a little bit close to home for me, because I have a terrible knowledge of geography. My wife and friends make fun of me for it all the time when we're playing, board games and stuff, and trivia about geography comes up. I might as well just throw a dart at a map if you're asking me to pick anything outside of the United States, essentially.
Back to the 3 R's, huh?
It's going to be 2 come to October.
It's usually a common statement that most kids graduating high school can't even point their hometown out on the map, from what I hear, but that's ridiculous to me. You should know where you fucking live.
To be fair, now we live in a world with smartphones, so everybody has a GPS device. They can just say, hey, take me home, and they'll get there.
It's one of those things that's just not important anymore, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't matter until the apocalypse happens, and then we're screwed.
Then what matters is finding a phone charger, not
a
being
map.
able to read a map.
Right.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Just think all the skills you needed in the 90s that you don't need anymore. Like
memorizing phone numbers.
Basic memorization, being able to understand, where you are spatially.
Being able to calculate tips when you're at a restaurant.
Time management, so you don't have the phone line busy when you're expecting a call because you were looking at porn on the internet.
It was whacking day, wasn't it?
Every day in the 90s. It was tough, but you still had to make it work.
And we still had Snicks.
I love how much of an ass kiss, back to The Simpsons, I love how much of an ass kiss Skinner is to Chalmers this entire time. He even has banners made. He's like, do you like these banners, sir? They're pretty transparent. You can tell you're just trying to kiss up.
Transparent toadyism.
Yes, I told the kids they were a bad idea.
Always the kid's fault, isn't it, Skinner?
Yes, sir.
He's so happy to say that. He's so excited. Yes, it is always their fault.
What an easy scapegoat.
What I want to say is, I felt like this episode with Skinner really felt like you were actually getting the Skinner that we know and love today. Because he's been kind of a hard ass up through the past, and he started kind of getting this way a little bit where he was loosening up. But maybe it's because it is Chalmers' first episode, or maybe they kind of separated Skinner's persona, where like the hard ass person is Chalmers, and so all that's left is the actual Skinner that we've grown to know over the last 30 years, basically.
That makes sense. There's actually a lot of fun with the dynamic of Chalmers and Skinner. Terry Scherer and Hank Azaria are doing the voices, and for the most part, every scene that they have in this episode are the two of them riffing. Like, the show is scripted, but they both would, on every single take, just keep taking the joke further and further, trying to get another laugh. So almost every sequence we see of those two in this episode is far longer than it was originally written.
I really enjoyed the brick jello part myself.
Yeah, that one was almost entirely ad-lib, those two.
Each part of that was great. Like, first off, the fact that, it just brought me back to 90s cafeteria food, where it's somehow that grape in the middle was supposed to make it more appetizing.
Well, that's how they could call it your fruit dish. That way it wasn't a dessert, it was your fruit side.
Oh, well, there we go. I hadn't realized it was like the tomato sauce that made it a vegetable. I get that.
Right, that's how pizza counts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Ketchup is a vegetable.
Public school.
The part we're referring to is when Skinner hands him literally a brick of jello and says, "May I interest you in a jello brick, sir? There's a grape in the center." And then Chalmers said, "Well, I'm not made of stone."
Brick and stone.
Thanks for making sure everyone got it.
This is another scene where you can just see, all of the filth in the background. Wherever they are in the school, there's always something dripping filth. Literal some sort of brown crud. And that's not even to talk about the, bio-waste hazard that was in Bart's desk.
It, came out of nowhere. It was like a 12 Keurig shit that came out of his desk.
Complete with birds.
This whole time that Skinner is giving this tour, the bullies are back in the basement trying to find a way out. Nelson just can't take it anymore, and he starts trying to punch his way through a wall. But then Bart realizes that he could probably fit through that vent.
In every good movie and every good show, there's always a vent.
I also really love that even as Bart's trying to help the group, the bullies can't stop bullying by nature because Nelson throws a rock at him as he's halfway through the vent.
And where does Nelson get that rock?
Probably just carries him in his pockets at this point.
Just in case a bullying scenario occurs at any coming moment.
He's dedicated to his bullyism, sir. He's not going to take that shit lightly.
Fair. That's just a level of professionalism in his bullying that I wasn't necessarily expecting. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, if you're going to do it right. No half-assing it.
That's fair.
I also really love, so we're going to kind of tie these two storylines together in a really awesome way, because Bart does, in fact, escape through the vents, and he immediately runs into Groundkeeper's Willie's lawnmower, who in just the previous scene was literally saying that if it weren't against God's laws, he would marry that lawnmower. Then, actually, in a rare moment of Willie having really great things happen to him, a beautiful Scottish woman comes by and essentially asks if there's a lock that she could wash her hair in. Willie's like, nah, but my apartment complex has a deep end. There was a rat in it.
But we got him! Dude, that scene is so amazing and weird and makes no damn sense in so many ways. So, for starters, when this unnamed lass appears, check the angle. That is some legitimate cartoon upskirt. Like, that angle makes me super awkward to look through.
It is whacking day.
Awkward, what you call it? Yeah, I was going to say, it's whacking day, buddy.
Fair enough. That is so strange and like, random and, like...
I thought it was a brilliant little bit, though. I think it's nice to see Willie get his day. I mean, he deserves it. That guy has fought wolves and saved children and fucking dug a hole into a well to get Bart. Like, Willie is the man, dude. He deserves to have a hottie randomly show up to wash her hair in his pool.
That's fair.
I wrote down that I don't remember this. Usually I remember all the scenes for the most part, but I did not remember this part at all. And I guess it's because Willie won. You never remember those moments. You always remember the downtime, not the ups.
True. I just love that, though. But we got him!
Yeah, she's scared. When he's like, uh-oh, a rat. But then, but we got him. It's like, great, awesome. Totally in there.
Let's go. Yeah.
Sold. You, killer of rats, with that. It does strike me as one of the things, like, I noticed in watching this episode that you can definitely see the transition from what you might call like an early Simpsons rhetoric where it's a pretty straightforward, like, 90s update on the honeymooners. You know what I mean? Like, it's very classical sitcom in terms of, like, the pacing, the beats, where the jokes come from. And in this episode, we see more than a couple super random bits that are thrown in here, like, just out of the blue. And to me, it sort of reflects The Simpsons as it's going to become later on. And also the way that The Simpsons sort of inspired a whole, like, genre of random comedy.
Family Guy is the big one, of course. Yeah, we've actually... It's interesting when you listen to the commentary on the DVDs, because a lot of times they talk about how even at times they felt they were pushing the line of too many cutaways at times. But as we all know, these seasons are considered to be the absolute golden age of The Simpsons. Some of the best episodes of all time come from these seasons that we're currently discussing. And they, at that time, thought that they were going too far. And it's so funny to think now, when you look at a Family Guy, that's literally the entire show is cutaway after cutaway. They literally
do cutaways where they don't know why they cut away to the cutaway in Family Guy.
Right. It's very funny to think about just how you're totally right. The Simpsons, it's another example in an outside sort of way of Simpsons did it, because they set the pacing and they inspired that condition where you would just have the ability to do that. That's something you can do a lot easier in a cartoon than you can do in a real life show. But even a show, I was just watching some episodes of That 70s Show, and they even do stuff like that, where they'll kind of have a flash away sequence where it's a dream sequence, but it works very much like a cartoon. It's a very interesting thing that I think a lot of that was inspired by what they're doing at this time on The Simpsons.
Word.
The main takeaway of this last Willie scene, though, is Willie is distracted. That's what they needed to get across, because at this time, Bart is actually escaping from the vent, and the tractor literally talks to him. It calls out, mocking him, tempting him to ride it. He doesn't want to misbehave, but the tractor has actually not only insulted him, but also a chicken by making the bok bok sounds. So the chicken is like, now he's mocking us both.
And naturally, chickens talk in a British accent. That just made sense to me.
What a cuckold.
Fair.
The tour is wrapping up with Skinner and Willie. There's actually one last bit in the classroom that's great. Chalmers is counting the stars on the flag to make sure there's in fact 50. Good work, Seymour.
By the way, that flag only has 37 stars on it.
Oh, did it really?
You stopped and counted?
No, I did.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't catch that.
Maybe like they couldn't animate another row of stars around the outside of that one.
I mean, you can't see the whole flag, so, you could argue that I just can't see the rest of them, but whatever.
But you counted 37 on the screen.
I think
that's
I
the
did.
part that counts.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Superintendent Chalmers went to Springfield Elementary, so he doesn't know how to count properly.
That seems entirely possible. Like, also, at some point we have to talk about what is a battle.
That's actually what we're getting to right now, is they're going to select a random student from the crowd to ask a few questions. And of course, Seymour points this direction towards Lisa, and right behind her is Ralph. So when he's like, you mean this kid right here? No, God, no. Lisa Simpson. Ask Lisa Simpson. When asked about the Battle of New Orleans, Lisa is able to answer with no problems. And this is where we get to the line Andy was just talking about. Ralph literally goes, "What's a battle?"
Did he just say, "What's a battle"?
No. He said, rattle. It's coming from the ceiling.
Each part of this is so good. Because they're like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I have a cold. You have a cold? That means you hear R's as B's, and none of that stuff makes sense. Like, I mean, it's so, like, awkward, and yet that's exactly what bullshitting someone, like, sounds like. It's so familiar and warming.
Oh, so you hear your R's as B's. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like, wait a minute, but I heard it. No, don't even. But I would like to propose that Ralph Wiggums is actually a deep philosopher who doesn't get enough credit for the, like, intriguing, like, probing questions that he comes up with. Ralph wants us to ask, what is a battle? Like, I mean, truly, what does it mean to war? This is where Ralph Wiggum is at, and no one's going to respect his outside the box intellect.
I mean, he did say that after Lisa said, which was 2 weeks after the war, so he could be asking what the point of that battle even was.
It's fair, and literally there was none. Incidentally, like historic side, the Battle of New Orleans.
Alexander Hamilton famous, basically.
Andrew Jackson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Make him an answer on a multiple choice question.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. There's one for your trivia. But yes, Andrew Jackson, noted racist and American piece of shit.
Is there a monument for him anywhere in this country?
There may be 1 or 10, yeah. You may have seen his portrait some places, I don't know. But, anyways, that was after and the most worthless of battles of all time. Anyways, returning to things that are funny.
The Simpsons, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
wait a minute.
The little exchange they had about battle and rattle, it honestly really reminded me, the back and forth reminded me of the clip episode, the 22 short films about Springfield, where they talked about Aurora Borealis in Skinner's kitchen. Like the back very vividly reminded me of that scene in particular. So, like we said, that these two guys like to riff with each other when they have a scene together, and it makes sense when you really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. These are two very, very talented voice actors and very funny people in general. So when you put them in a room together, they're essentially just trying to one-up each other, and it makes for some great, great moments between these two.
Contained entirely in your kitchen. Yes. Can I see it? No.
That's like the Reverend Lovejoy's line we'll get to here in a little while. But for now, we're on the final stop of the school inspection. Chalmers is actually sticking his finger in the sandbox and tasting it.
For urine.
No signs of urine. That's right. If there's no smoke, there's no fire. That's a weird thing to say.
What an odd remark.
And just then, we see Bart on that mower. He couldn't help but ride. He loses control, and he's going full blast for both Skinner and Chalmers, right as Chalmers bends over to pick up a 50-cent piece.
It was lodged between 2 flowers, for the record. The guy does a whole lot more ass swinging during his coin pickup process than I do. Like, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but if you, like, watch the scene, he, like, has to get several full buttocks undulations involved in order to pick this coin up.
It's the same way that Skinner ties his shoes. So we were actually thinking this was a teacher thing. We were going to ask you about your ass movement during bending over.
I mean, maybe I don't realize that I'm doing it. Like, I'll be sure to film myself from the back the next time I tie my shoes.
Please make sure you're wearing pants.
Yeah, well, I can't promise anything. If I have a need to wear shoes without pants, that's just the way the world is.
The Naked Mile. I know how you college kids are.
You bat-taking, underpants-wearing lily huggers.
Exactly. The really sad part about this moment is it cost Skinner a promotion. Chalmers said that he was going to give it to Skinner, but now it's going to this other guy who is not
Holloway.
Damn you, Holloway.
But he's a drunk.
And a pill
popper. This conversation is happening while the lunch lady is doing double duty as a nurse and stitching up Chalmers' backside.
They get 2 paychecks.
I love that.
I feel like that was just a brilliant way to turn some lazy animation into a joke. Like, they realized that they had just used the lunch lady as the nurse, and they're like, hey, wait a minute. Hey,
they actually had a nurse, though, in previous seasons. That's the thing that threw me off on that, too.
That actually makes even more sense to Andy's theory.
Brilliant.
Because it could have been an animation error. They fucked up and put the wrong character in, and we're like, oh shit, we'll just make a joke about it.
Seems fine.
Continuity.
We learn that Skinner's losing the promotion, that the lunch lady gets 2 paychecks, and that Bart Simpson has gone too far. He is not getting detention this time. No more lines on the chalkboard. He is expelled. Done.
I find it really strange that Bart didn't say, well, you know, you did lock me in a closet, bro. Like, I know that we need to keep the kids in the closet for other reasons, but, like, it struck me as strange.
Hey, man, we're open-minded on this show. If you want to come out of the closet, you come out of the closet, bro.
Well, they were expressing. Yeah.
I think Bart was remaining hush-hush because he still expected a mountain bike somehow.
Dude, freaking Nelson does. Even after they've been locked up for a while, Nelson's like, when are we going to get our mountain bikes?
What if they're dead?
Well, again, you just don't remember how important having a mountain bike was in 1993. Like, I mean, Nelson has his priorities in order, plain and simple. Getting locked in a goddamn closet for a month, no big deal. But not having a mountain bike, that's serious.
Bart getting expelled is the end of Act 1. We open up again back at the Simpsons' home where they're watching Eye on Springfield, where they're going to see what happened to the Munchkins from The Wizard of Oz.
That is so my best fit. I love that gag. We're like, we'll see what happened to him. And then it's a row of fucking graves, which if you look really closely, all say dwarf. And nothing else. It's like, that's so sad, and yet probably true.
Probably at least half true.
But don't worry, we'll also visit a nudist colony for animals. I like that they actually had the black bar over their penises, too.
Yeah. And they were size appropriate. The horse one was huge. And finally, we're going to learn about a holiday that's called both Distasteful and Punile by a panel of hillbillies.
Thank you so much. Like, I want very much to like see and like witness the panel of hillbillies that is rating various holidays. Like, I really like to imagine that it's Cletus and several other people, like, you know, together, and they just show them clips of various holidays, and like, what do you think, guys? And they're like, we're gonna go puerile, actually.
The holiday they're talking about is, of course, Whacking Day, the title of this episode. It was started all the way back by Jeb Springfield. I read my own shorthand, sorry.
I do the same thing, man. I have Jeb every time I put his name there, too.
Whacking Day was started by Springfield founder Jebediah Springfield. It's every May 10th. The locals all meet at the town center where they club snakes to death.
No, they whack them to snake heaven. Come on.
That's true. Excuse me. I actually really enjoy, they have this little flashback bit here where they're showing some of the origin stories of Whacking Day, and one of the videos is of President Nixon. This video of Nixon is actually a joke talking about when he fired a man by the name of Alger Hiss, who is an American government official who was charged with being a Soviet spy back in the 40s. So this video goes on to say, after the president took care of Alger Hiss, he went on to take care of a few more Hiss, or another Hiss, and it basically shows him killing a snake.
No, it should show him killing. Yeah, he should be killing a snake, but in fact, he's just beating the shit out of a guy with a stick for no reason.
It's like trying to hit the snake, he hits the guy in the head like 5 times.
That's right.
Not trying to do anything except smack this dude in the face. Like, you can tell that that's what it, because when everyone starts booing, he's like, oh, is Whacking Day over? Am I not on the face of the snake? Like, Nixon is all about this holiday. Like,
he confused Whacking Day with the Purge.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when the townspeople cut his head off, put his head in a jar, and froze him until the year 3000 and beyond to be president of the Earth. President of Earth, yeah.
Exactly. Well, Lisa is absolutely disgusted with this barbaric holiday, and just then Homer walks in and says, how was school? Lisa says that she learned how many grams were in a pennyweight, and Bart says, I got expelled.
That's my boy.
And then we get a small delay.
Beer.
And finally...
What?
Homer is pissed that his son got expelled. Bart's like, no big deal, I'll just be a boot black.
A son of mine is going to be a Cockney boot black.
We're going to get you back in school.
Which then we get to go to the Springfield Christian School, where they put the fun back in fundamentalist dogma. I'm a big fan of that.
I like when they drop him off, Marge warns him, now honey, this is a religious school. You need to be very mindful of what you say and what you do. So, of course, when introduced to the class, Bart sings the song. I assume Richie wanted this.
No, I was going to say you need to do the line before that. When Bart says he's going to sing a song, he says, I'm going to sing the song Beans, Beans, the musical fruit.
Well, guys, if I'm not mistaken, he asks him for a psalm.
Yes.
He does say psalm. You're absolutely right.
Which is even more hilarious and also, this is some poor pedagogy. I just got to point out one teacher to another is don't let a student take the floor like that. But I mean, what possible thing did you think was coming after Beans, Beans, the magical fruit that was going to be an instructive and worthwhile moment in any way?
Well, to be fair, he says beans were a staple of the Israelites.
Which, by the way, not true. I'm almost 100% certain that they did not really, I don't think many bean species are native to that part of the world. I could be wrong, but they were eating like ancient grains.
Are you saying religious figureheads make up things to quote the Bible all the time? I didn't say it.
Hey,
Dr. Andy
Joel
Briseño
Osteen didn't know that anyone wanted to stay in that church, bro. He didn't know.
No one gave him a message. Yeah, if they would have just asked, it would have been fine.
Yeah, obviously.
Speaking of crazy religious leaders, this teacher comes chasing out after Bart in the very next scene. He's running away. The chaser's got the teacher has a stick and is chasing him down, saying, "Avert your eyes, children! The demon could take many forms."
And for anyone who wasn't, there in the 90s, any younger listeners who were like, wow, that seems like an extreme response to making one fart joke. It was totally that way. The 90s were mentioning body functions in front of Christians would literally get you chased by a mob. It happened to me several times.
I'm sorry. I just picture like a grown version of Andy running away.
It's just like that, except shorter.
Tiny Andy!
I'm Tiny Andy!
Bart, after this one trial and one error, one failure, he's decided, I guess I just can't be educated. So he decides he'll get a job as a food additive tester. His first test is a diet soda named Nature's Goodness, and when asked what's in it, he's told 2,4-dioxyprosaneramine. Basically a lot of chemical bullshit. When he drinks it, he says it tastes good, but unfortunately it turns him into a hideous monster, so the scientists check off, pleasurable taste, little bit of monsterism.
Some monsterism, I like the optimism of that comment. Some monsterism,
What's the line? Where is it cut off of the acceptable amount of monsterism before that product hits the shelves? That's what I want to know.
That's a really
varies from person to person, I would imagine.
Richie, you should really be getting paid by Diet Coke for testing the limits of their product.
I just had a Diet Snapple as well. So I could be good at this.
Hey, there you go, right? Seems fine.
Found my calling.
Bart's thinking he's off the hook from having to go to school anymore, but that's actually when Marge steps in and decides, I'm going to homeschool you. I'll be your teacher.
I love that scene where Bart is on the couch and Lisa's on her way to school, and he's all like, oh, well, I'm going to make the most of a bad situation. And he's totally ready to stretch out and enjoy things. And then Mom comes in and she's all like, you have to be ready in class. And they look at each other and it's like this very honest sibling moment in where it's like, oh my God, Mom can't really mean that thing that she's saying right now.
Well, we'll definitely get there, but it's even worse because Marge says that you need to be in your seat and ready when the bell rings. And it's like, wait, did you really buy a bell?
And then she reports, I bought a bell. And she giggles to herself, which we see more than several times. Which
she's very giddy about this. It's like a little project for her that she seems to really, really enjoy. But for now, Homer has decided, let's just give up on the boy. Let's focus on Lisa and the other one.
And the other one, yeah. is the response to that.
Yeah, Lisa's very sad, and Homer's just like, what's wrong with you? She tells him she hates whacking day, and she's actually worried that there might be something wrong with her. But Homer's like, no, honey, there's a battle between good and evil that resides within every man that can never be resolved. And then we see my absolute favorite scene and possible new tattoo inspiration. We see dancing evil Homer. He's dancing on the grave. It's Devil Homer dancing on the grave of good Homer with maracas, singing I Am Evil Homer. And I feel like I should get that tattooed on my shoulder with the statement, I solemnly swear I am up to no good underneath it.
I think in this day and age, you should be able to have it in like meme form where it actually plays out and dances over and over again forever.
And that would actually be very Harry Potterish of it, too. Like, that would be very combining of both worlds. It'd be like a magical tattoo that moves.
But yeah, I mean, that's an iconic moment, and it's so random, and it does goes back to the philosophical nature of The Simpsons, right? Like, you know, Homer is all about the duality of man, and then, you know, we sort of see his shortcuts, like, which is often used as an excuse by shitty people.
I am evil Homer. I am evil Homer.
It's so catchy, too.
It is. I'll be singing that forever.
I've been singing it for like the last 2 days when I first watched this episode. It's bad, but I love it. It doesn't bother me. And I see him shaking the maracas every time I sing it, too.
That's what puts it over the top. If you didn't have the maracas, it wouldn't be as funny.
I think you might be right. That's absolutely the case. But this is when we get back to Bart and homeschool with Marge. And like we said, Marge is taking it super serious. She actually gets a bell that ends up being a little bit louder than she anticipated. She decides they might unplug that after both Bart and Marge basically go deaf the first time it rings.
And then she has to write Mrs. Simpson on the board and be like, I'll be your teacher, Mrs. Simpson. And like giggles to herself. Which
Bart's just groaning the whole time.
Yeah,
you see how perfectly she wrote it?
Oh yeah, very nice handwriting. She practiced at that a while, and I think it if you look on the clock, it took her like 10 minutes to write it. But like this is the thing I actually have experience with. My mom was a substitute teacher, and so like once she was the substitute for my class, just super random, and like you know she also insisted that I refer to her by her last name, Mrs. Briseño. I'm like that is really weird. But she also thought it was hilarious. And was like super pleased with herself. So
sure, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, moms!
God bless Kathy.
Unfortunately, Bart's finding school to be just as boring as it was before. Only now, when he throws paper wads and paper airplanes, and the teacher turns around, he has a really hard time getting away with saying "I didn't do it." He still says it with a straight face, but you look around and there's just no other culprits available.
Has he said I didn't do it before this?
Yeah, I remember he learned to say I didn't do it from Homer back when Homer was dying.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's right.
We thought Homer was dying. Marge even arranged to have a guest speaker on the very first day of school, Abe Simpson, who has some stories to tell. About a time that he used to have to, I guess he was trying to get away from the war. He was dressed in drag, dancing for Hitler. And about that time, Bart is like, Grandpa, is any of this true? Most of it. There was a period in the 40s that I wore a dress. Oh, the designers back in. So many designers.
Acte libre, that is not a movie.
Every part of this is outstanding, right? Like, I mean, Grandpa Simpson as a cabaret dancer, like, we just have this brief flashback to cabaret, which again, yeah, we are officially into extreme what the fuck zone in terms of where we're willing to go in these cutscenes, right? Like, why did we get Hitler and Nixon in the same episode? How is that even a possibility? But there they are.
Well, part of it is his grandpa is all over the fucking place. It was just last week's episode, The Front, where we actually talked about there is a start in that episode where Grandpa Simpson wears a dress, and it seems like this is going to be a trope of the series for at least a while.
It's back-to-back weeks of cross-dressing Grandpa.
Huh. That's really interesting.
I kept the 6-shooter in my garter, I did.
I remember that now that you bring it up. Oh, well, that's not the last time we're going to see Grandpa in drag either, now that I, stop think through it. Not at all.
Yeah, it happens quite a bit. I really love the ending of this sequence, though, because as Bart is questioning Grandpa, Homer opens the garage and comes home from work, as he usually does, but he doesn't realize or remember that his family is using the garage as a classroom, so he comes inches from just running over Bart.
Don't!
After not killing Bart, Homer is excited to show off to his family the new whacking stick that he's got, and it actually gets Marge really, really excited. She is very, very.
She has a whacking stick fetish.
She does. She
likes to watch Homer whack it. I mean, come on.
She likes to see him whack it slow and then fast.
Should I whack slow or fast?
How about first slow and then fast?
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Just like Homer.
Nice.
When we were kids, none of these jokes landed. Like, I had...
Oh, really?
Like, I mean, I told... Like, I was 9 when this came out. Like, I totally...
Yeah, I would agree. The first time I saw these, there's a lot of adult jokes, and I'm sure were flying over my head, at least in part.
Oh, man. Like, I probably would have known that whacking off was not something you were allowed to say, like, in public. But, like, I definitely did not know, like, the literal definition of those words.
I know, I learned what masturbation was from the Green Day album Dookie, where it's the song where he's talking about when masturbation lost its fun, you're fucking lazy. I can't remember what the song is. Yeah, totally. Longview, yeah, that's one of the best songs on that album, and one of my favorite Green Day albums. But yeah, that's how I learned what masturbation was. So, whatever year that came out would be how old I was or within a couple of years of that album coming out is how old it was. So I'd have to do some research to know if I could have gotten this joke when it premiered or not.
I'm going to say that was 1995.
I felt like it was 93.
I thought it was 94.
All right, so that would be, we're in the same ballpark area, but this one came out in April 93.
So this album came out, Dookie came out in February of 94. So.
Oh, Richie the WizKid. We should have just assumed he got it right.
You're welcome, world.
He is the WizKid.
I mean, if it's about the bathroom and it's the WizKid, you guys should just listen.
That's fair. Although, I personally, never mind.
Well, I don't think we're going to get a better place than that to take a quick break, so we'll be right back after we hear from our Podern family.
Hi, I'm Drew.
I'm Nate.
And I'm Tanner, and we are the hosts of Headline Heroes.
Every week we take a bizarre, out-there article.
Germans build underground pipeline for beer.
And attempt to create a superhero or villain.
The obvious one is that they have a giant robot that runs off of beer.
Along the way, we discuss powers, design a costume, and of course, struggle with a name.
Graham Sam? No.
Graham Sam, no!
And inevitably, we get off subject and talk about the really important stuff.
I did go to Bill Engvall's website, and I just want to tell you a couple of things I'm seeing here.
Please do, I wish you would. But we always arrive with the super creation we are proud of. Join Headline Heroes every Tuesday as we try to make reality a little more super.
So there's a lot of really cool shit happening in this episode.
Nice transition.
Maybe the most amazing thing of all is Marge gets Bart excited about reading. And not just excited about reading like a little bit, but to the point that he chooses to read instead of watching an episode of Itchy and Scratchy, which is mind-blowing to me.
Well, it wasn't.
Why does that episode of Itchy and Scratchy exist? Like, that is strange.
Guest hosted by Oliver Stone, and it's a JFK parody.
Yeah, it's just the part from JFK where Jack Ruby
Lee Harvey
Oswald just done with these two characters for no reason whatsoever. I mean,
shout out to Toby, Kristen, and Rudy, all 3 members of the Secret Transmission
There's
podcast.
More than Toby?
Yeah, that's right. I've been told that we need to mention them all.
You're always one for doing what you're told.
Fun fact about that, actually, from the director's commentary, is despite this taking place almost 20 years later, people were really mad about this Itchy and Scratchy joke. People actually called in and complained that they didn't appreciate them taking the JFK thing lightly, and it actually caused a small amount of uproar for at least a little while, and people are just like, really? Like, you're still upset about that? I mean, like, I understand it was a traumatic experience, but come on, it's been like 20 years.
You didn't have a problem with them going on Nixon literally minutes earlier, but all of a sudden...
Well, that's because JFK was so beloved, is the thing.
Yeah, I know. Like, I understand
one of the most...
that, but I'm saying, like, it's all or none, right? Like, get over it.
It's a lot of double standards in society. This is just one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Bart was so excited about this book that he gives a report on it. It's about colonial times.
You haven't named it yet. This is like, I had to read this in elementary school. Almost every kid did at some point in time, I thought. But it's Johnny Tremaine. It's the kid that is I think he's a blacksmith apprentice, and he accidentally gets his hand Fucked up boys.
It's no accident, bro. So
I never read that book. I never even heard of it, to be honest.
Really?
Johnny
Wow.
Tremaine by Esther Forbes. Classic young adult book. And I remember reading this as a kid. And it's definitely one of those books that can make you love reading. Because, some evil apprentice, tricks Johnny Tremaine and he, fucks up his hand with molten silver. But then he manages to still be, a crucial part of the Revolutionary War. It's not bad.
Well, it does the trick with Bart. In fact, Marge gets the idea that since it's set in colonial times, they should go to old Springfield town for a visit on a field trip.
I put down here that in 1 week in her classroom, Marge has gotten Bart's attention better than any time at Springfield Elementary.
And then Homer has almost killed them all twice.
But Bart's learned a lot of lessons.
Hey, and by the way, if they do that exact same gig again, I kind of it looks like it's the same footage. It looks like they were just a minute short, and they were like, oh, well, we could just do the get them run over again gig. That'll be fine.
I thought the first time Grandpa was there and the second time he wasn't.
You might be right, but whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was two different shots, and I actually thought it was a really good joke. I loved it. Homer's just so absent-minded about it and so in his own world that he completely admits and just does his routine. I mean, it was just last week that Homer said, it's not easy living in your own rut.
Thank you, Homer Simpson, so much.
Next up, we have one of the greatest sequences, animation-wise, in the episode. We get Homer training for whacking day. He's got his whacking sticks, he's got some pop-up snakes ready for, essentially, target practice, and he's actually doing, kung fu-style moves, and I do mean the animators actually based a lot of his motions on real-life kung fu. Of course, there was some adaptation to make it about hitting snakes with a stick, but the movements were supposed to be reminiscent of kung fu, I should say.
You know, I've always loved this scene since I was a kid, but I did notate this time that since it's set up in his own backyard, I'm assuming that Homer is the one that set this thing up, which if he's the one that set it up, then it makes it a little less impressive, because you should know where all the snakes are.
He knows the sequence.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's an incredible amount of work to set up all of these, triggering snake things just to whack them in half.
It's like a domino
clearly,
set, right?
Yeah, and so Homer is fairly average, I imagine, right? Which means that he can't be, at least in my opinion, the only one with, a practice whacking setup in his backyard. This has to be something, almost everyone in Springfield does, which means that there has to be, this huge cottage industry to produce wooden snakes that you can break in half with a stick.
Well, and to your point, Homer's average, so that means there's actually going to be people with nicer setups that have better pop-up versions.
Certainly, Ned Flanders has a bigger, better setup with, many more snakes to whack with sticks.
And you can put them on random, so to Richie's point, you actually get better training out of it.
Possibly so.
But Homer has passion, guys. He has so much
I also
passion
want to point out, this is the only time I think that I've seen Homer be genuinely athletic in the first 4 seasons. There are a few gags one way or the other, but he's out there. He is, engaged in this sport.
I would say the only other time is when he was the mascot for the baseball team. He got pretty into that athletic-wise, but you're totally right. He is pushing his usual movement in general. He usually is on the couch a lot more than he is in this episode.
He saves it all for 1 day a year.
All for whacking day, that's right.
Season 4, episode 20. That's right, 420, baby.
Appropriate. Lisa's still very upset about this whole whacking day thing, though, and Homer just encourages her, honey, just do what I do. Ball up all of your anger and frustration into a little ball and then release it at an appropriate time. You know, like that time Daddy hit the referee with a whiskey bottle. Remember that? Don't you remember that, honey?
Dude, that is so good with the baby doll voice. I remember that, honey, right? With Daddy hit the referee? Uh-huh.
And Lisa's just like, uh-huh. You can hear the misery in her voice when she has to say, yes, I remember.
Can we talk about how this is obviously some dark moment when Homer, you would get arrested for that. There's no possible flinging a whiskey bottle at a referee that doesn't end up with the trip to the slammer. That's not an accidental thing. That's not casual.
No, that's
it's
a pretty big damn deal.
Violation first.
And that made the newspapers in a small town, so it's not like it's a secret. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna take it one step further. None of his kids were playing in that game either. Let's just say that.
I mean, which way is worse, right? Either it's like one of Bart and Lisa's hockey games before that rivalry built into such an important part of the series, which means he's getting whiskey drunk at child sporting events, and then abusing volunteer referees.
Does whiskey count as beer?
It can cause anal leakage.
Oh no! Exactly. Oh god! But it's either that or he's like at the like. Oh, I forgot the football team's name. But in Capital City, he drove out there, and then he's on the jumbotron, right? Like, I mean, that would make the Sports Center not top 10, unquestionably.
Capital City Goofballs?
That's the baseball team, right?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what the football team is there.
There is one because
they try to move it to Albuquerque in the future seasons, though, I think.
Well, and Ned took him to a game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're just gonna say it's the Springfield Adams.
It's the Springfield whatever. Yeah, that might actually be it. Who knows? Back with Bart and Marge, they are on their way to Old Springfield Town, where they're actually doing auditions for the Village Idiot. I like this little bit. The guy interviewing is like, "Yes, I played a panicky idiot in the Poseidon Adventure." And they're like, "Oh, we're sorry. We're looking more of a duh idiot than that."
And I love the line of people who are like in line to apply for this job. It definitely looks
must be
very
lucrative,
2017, right? It's like all of those people have advanced graduate degrees.
I'm sure they do. Bart and Marge run across Barney to start, and they see him. He must be playing the town drunk. Nope, he's playing a governor. He's just drunk on the job. I also really enjoy the part where they visit Fort Sensible, where they tell their story of the time the opposing army said if they didn't send that one man out of their fort, they were going to attack. So what'd you do? We sent him out, of course.
Was he killed?
And how?
I mean, it makes sense, right?
And then they pan out to show that the name of the fort is, in fact, Fort Sensible. Great bit. But the real connection piece in this, where we tie everything together, actually starts in this very next sequence, where Bart and Marge are seeing a slideshow of things it includes are the very first Whacking Day. And I love these little moments where Bart actually makes a really good detective, because he actually figures out that the dates they said couldn't possibly be correct, that the Whacking Day couldn't have started when they said it did, because they just pointed out Jebediah was busy, that he was doing something else that day, some sort of battle.
Not only that, but it means that from Johnny Tremaine, Bart has learned and remembered that I think it was the Battle of Saratoga happened on May 5th or May 10th, 1775.
It's a beautiful moment where the A and B plot really connects, because Bart's school learning is going better than ever, and we're now connecting that to the Whacking Day snake killing plot.
Reading is fundamental. That's clearly the lesson of this episode.
What I wrote down is this a little bit of foreshadowing, because as we know, seasons down the road, Lisa is going to refute Jebediah Springfield altogether, and this little instance right here, Bart's already proven that there's false facts about him, which basically means they're making shit up. So, like, Bart was onto something way back in season 4 that Lisa's going to touch on years down the road.
And I wanted to just point out how problematic this episode is for everyone who thinks they know what state Springfield is in. Because clearly, according to this episode, Jebediah is a Revolutionary War hero, which would strongly suggest that they can't be on the West Coast. I mean...
Yeah, those states weren't around.
Well, he's just a frontiersman, though, because they said 1775, so... That's
fair enough, but there were no white people on the West Coast in 1775. Like, literal zero.
Prove it.
That's called fake news, everybody.
God damn it, no!
So, Springfield, whatever state it's located in, is gearing up for Whacking Day. It is upon us. Apu has done a promotion giving away a free squishy. They didn't quite think it out too well, though, because he sent a bunch of people with sticks around his store to whack the snake that they find, and they just end up destroying the shop. The cops are doing extra training, making sure to aim for the body, and I love that. They take one shot and shoot the only light out in the entire room. And finally, we get to the scene where Lisa, who is at a moral conflict, she just cannot come to terms with Whacking Day, So she's gone to a spiritual advisor, Reverend Lovejoy, who actually turns to the scripture to talk about how even the Lord supports Whacking Day.
And the Lord said, Whack ye all the serpents which crawl on their bellies, and thy town shall be a barren unto others. So you see, Lisa, even God himself endorses Whacking Day.
Let me see.
No.
Finally, at the Whacking Day celebration in the center of town, they've even brought in the choir to sing, what is it, Ode to Whacking Day? Oh, Whacking Day, oh, Whacking Day.
Yeah, Oh Christmas Tree with some slightly improved lyrics, if I'm going to be honest, right?
Absolutely. Oh, Whacking Day, our hallowed snake skull cracking day.
We'll break their backs, gouge out their eyes, their evil hearts will pulverize.
Oh, Whacking Day, may God bestow his grace on thee.
That was pretty impressive. Richie, I didn't know that you were on the cast for a Castrati Christmas.
Oh, I thought it was the Chickmonk's Greatest Hits.
Just please don't ask me to do it again.
That's fair. That's fair.
A moment of absolute genius for Homer Simpson. He turns his yard into a parking lot, but he doesn't charge by the vehicle, he charges by the axle. $10 per axle. And we see this bizarre car. It's got to have like 20 fucking wheels on it, at least.
10 axles.
Pull in. Is it 10 axles?
That'd
be 20
guidebook.
wheels. That's what I called. Homer, of course, just goes, woohoo! And this little guy and the driver is like, hooray!
It works out for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's got to be a hard vehicle to park. I mean, I'm sure you're joyous every time you find something to do with that.
That just killed me. I don't know why, because it's just the stupidest thing, but it's so funny.
It's a cutaway without cutting away.
It really is. Finally, before the celebration officially starts, Barney's actually started a little early. He's fighting off snakes in the grass, but then when Lenny walks up and is like, hey, are you celebrating Whacking Day? Barney's like, what's Whacking Day?
Yeah, meanwhile, Barney's just suffering from the DTs, like something very severe. Like, clearly he's lost his job as the governor of ye old Springtown. And
Or being drunk.
Day off on the job.
See, he should have just been like the nurse / lunch lady and collected 2 paychecks,
That
town
would be
drunk
great.
and town
That
governor.
would have been how to make it happen, right?
Come on, Barney.
But I just feel bad for Barney, right? Like, I mean, he's clearly suffering from, like, a complete breakdown, and everyone's like, ah!
It's still valid that he could be suffering from PTSD.
It's almost certain that he is. He's, like, fighting creatures that don't exist.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark joke when you really think about it. You're absolutely right. Quimby's also here to start off the official celebration. He's actually going to introduce the Grand Marshal of Whacking Day. This is actually right before that is where we see what Andy was talking about earlier, where Marge tells him he wants him to start by whacking slow and then start whacking fast. Lisa interrupts this moment between the two with a final plea for her father not to join that mob mentality. But he reassures her, but honey, if I join the mob, maybe I can steer them in wise directions. Now, where's my giant foam cowboy hat and my air horn?
You see how happy he was when he found the air horn, too?
Fucking
Oh, it's
joyous,
such a great
man.
expression.
I
Yeah,
wish
it's such a
anything
beautiful
made me
moment.
as happy as that foam cowboy hat and air horn make Homer Simpson, man.
His face
So
was
joyous.
just amazing. Yeah, it looked so happy.
There's one other time that I see Homer genuinely smile where, like, it just makes me smile to see him so happy. And I've talked about it before, but it's the episode where they go to the beach for the summer, where Lisa makes the friends at the beach, and then the rest of the family is playing that little dating game. And Bart opens the door, and it's the nerdy guy that looks like Millhouse, and it cuts to Homer, and he gets this slow, gradual, big grin on his face, and then he goes, "It looks just like you, Poindexter." And he's so joyous and happy in that one little moment. And I don't know why, that's always stuck with me. But I didn't remember this one, and this one was great.
This one is really good. It's such a funny animation.
Homer's joy is just so contagious. Like, even when it's because he's setting his, like, diploma on fire because he got into college. Like, you're just like, yes, please.
Which he just got in the last episode, by the way.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, that was the one right before this, thank goodness.
No. He just got his high school diploma in the last episode.
Oh.
It turned out he had failed to complete remedial science 1A.
Yes.
And he wasn't so good at Latin either.
Right. Well, we now get introduced to our Grand Marshal of events. It's going to be Larry White.
It's Barry.
No, sir. It says right here on this paper, it's Larry.
I think I know my own name. My favorite part is Quimpy's response. Yeah, we'll see about that, asshole.
Funny moment here, I'll be honest, I did not catch it, but it literally made everybody on the DVD commentary just start cracking up laughing. When Barry White starts talking his speech, he says, "My unlimited love to y'all," which in 1973 he formed the band the Love Unlimited Orchestra, so that was a in-joke to his musical career.
Oh, nice. Those clever writers again.
Whoosh! It's the sound of a joke going on.
I love, though, when he actually has to lean over and say, "Hey, what's this day all about?" And when he finds out, he's disgusted. It's like, "You people make me sick." Yay!
Everyone's left. You're not even listening to me, are they?
Probably not.
No. Man, I really would like to know, incidentally, the list of Grand Marshals for Whacking Day throughout the years. Like, any list that has Richard Nixon and Barry White on it, I just want to know who comes between that, right?
There has to be some big names in there, right?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I mean, I'm already really impressed. And, incidentally, what do you think Barry White's speaking fee was at this point? Like, I know that 1993 was not the high point of his career or anything.
Well, I don't know how much his fee was, but I will say that in real life, the reason he got on the show is he actually expressed that he just was a big fan. So when they came across this plot device, they had this Whacking Day concept, and they came up with the bass ending, and they thought, "Oh, perfect, we'll use Barry White." I don't really know how it works out with the fees involved, but I know that the real life Barry White was absolutely thrilled to do this.
It's because in real life he is a beast supreme master, and he has to tootle Bart into helping him become a better beast master. That's why they asked him to be on the show. I actually notated that.
Andy, you may not be aware, but your magical Maggie theory has stemmed into a whole lot of other theories, including that Bart may be a Beastmaster, which I don't support as much as Richie, but
He's a Beastmaster in training, man. He's going to have some peaks and valleys.
Okay,
Animals
that
always
could explain
respond
things.
to him.
What? If animals always respond to him, why is he so afraid of the tigers in the scene where he has to know Roman numerals?
Because he's focused on the Roman numerals and he's not thinking clearly.
Yeah, whatever.
Adrian,
it doesn't always work. I mean, like I said, he's in
for the
training.
record, Rocky V.
Rocky.
It's Rocky 5 plus Rocky 2 equals Rocky 7.
Adrian's
Revenge. So I love that every time we have Andy on, there's always been these weird little tie-ins that we don't really plan, and this one's no different. The last time you were on the show was the first time we saw an appearance of the Legitimate Businessmen's Club. And of course, they are out in full arm. They're fully armed for the day's festivities. They are marching with both guns and their banners, declaring them as legitimate businessmen.
That guy super casually pulls out that Tech 9, incidentally.
Just
pop. Snakes. Like, it's super no big deal.
I mean, it is Wiggum, so you don't have a whole lot to worry about, I don't think.
Fair.
The snakes are fleeing in fear, of course, because there's a bunch of fucking essentially hillbillies with sticks chasing them at this point. I love the band director is sitting on a park bench, and he's like, "Ew, a bug!" And then the very next second, he is just completely buried with snakes.
I hate it when that happens.
Bart's love of reading has not diminished yet, though. He's back with Lisa, and he's actually reading a book entitled The Truth About Whacking Day.
By Bob Woodward.
Yes.
They're trying to get to the bottom of this whole Jebediah Springfield mystery. Bart gets a great idea, though. If they could attract snakes to their house, they could protect them. And since Bart learned by reading that snakes respond to vibrations in the ground, they just have to turn their stereo speakers on their side and then play something that has a lot of bass.
I love when they go to the record thing. I already mentioned this joke earlier, but they're like, all right, we need something with a lot of bass. Tiny Tim, the Chipmunks, a Castrati Christmas, which, side note for all the kids at home, Castrati refers to a group of opera singers who were intentionally castrated so their voice would never change and they'd never go through puberty.
Yikes!
A eunuch.
Yeah,
That was a darker joke than I realized.
eunuch. There's one existing recording of a castrati singing. I guess it's a castrato in the singular. In either case,
Is it a Christmas album?
It is not, actually. But in either case, go check it out and be glad that you were not a really musically talented male child in the 18th century.
Yeah, it sounds like a bad plan. Well, of course, they need something that has a lot of bass, and who should walk by at that time other than the Grand Marshal of the event, Barry White, who's now disgusted and wants to help save the snake, so of course, he's willing to lend his voice to the cause.
Anything for a lady. I like how obviously, not low enough our voices either.
Yeah, I don't think I can. Anything for a lady. That's good.
There's a reason I didn't even try on that one. Really cool thing about this scene right here is actually Barry White did all of the singing in studio. A lot of times when they have a musical guest or a musician as a guest, if they have a song, they'll just play it off of a master track, but he just laid down this entire thing while he was doing his voice acting in studio.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, there's usually too many legal issues behind it.
So they could actually afford to get Barry White both talking and singing, unlike Michael Jackson.
I guess so, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, he does that whole little spiel about the snakes when he first starts the song, too, so...
Yeah, they do like a remix of Can't Get Enough of Your Love, but with some lyrics changed to reflect the snakes, and I like that they actually had Lisa jamming on a guitar. I thought it was a weird choice. They didn't go with a saxophone, but...
I think it's a bass, based on...
And that would make sense that it's a bass guitar to make the most...
Where the hell did they get that, incidentally?
From Barry White.
Oh, he just carries one of those?
He just carries that around,
exactly. And if you'll recall, Miles, this is not the first time Lisa has played a guitar. She literally played one in Last Exit to Springfield.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was just a few episodes ago. You're totally right.
That the protest song?
It sure is. Yeah. All of the snakes are in fact attracted to the sound of Barry White's voice, so they flee to take shelter in the Simpsons' home. They completely bury Maggie, who shares a pacifier with one of the snakes.
This is the most magical moment that I was referring to earlier, is that this rattlesnake, is literally about to eat her, and she just looks it in the face. It's like, whatever, punk. Obviously, she can speak to animals.
Which would be in the Beastmaster theory, too. I imagine Richie might say that Bart is helping out here.
Yeah, maybe.
I think Bart's being trained. I already said that by Barry White.
By Barry White. Oh,
Bart is able to use this opportunity since all of the people are fleeing after the snakes. They actually end up in the Simpsons' front lawn, and Bart is able to capture their attention, letting them all know about how Whacking Day is a sham. He discovers that through the power of reading, which is really the strongest part message of this entire episode.
That's the R that was going to get rid of in October. It all ties together.
Oh no!
It all ties together.
Man, that's a bad move.
I just did the mind blown gesture. I realized I have to actually tell you about that, or it's just me doing a thing by the side of my head in a room alone.
But it turns out Whacking Day was actually just an event that was designed as an excuse to beat up the Irish. And then you get an Irishman who's dressed like a fucking leprechaun explain, yes, I used to take quite a few whoppings.
It's true, I took many a lump, but 'twas all in good fun. It's like, wait a minute, what? Oh, God.
So the commentators pointed out right here that of all of the ethnic groups that they have ever made fun of, they probably make fun of the Irish most often and with the most carefreeness, and they've never once had a complaint by any Irish person or Irish organization, at least at the time that this was filmed. So they're just good. They just take the joke, basically. They don't complain about it.
You mean at the time of the DVD commentary, not the
correct
time
at the time of the commentary. You're right.
It adds a lot more time onto it.
I think for the main part, this is just like, oh yeah, America's racist as fuck joke, and then yeah, move forward.
That old Jebediah.
Yeah, 1915 was clearly a dark time for the Irish in Springfield. I don't know what brought that on. It's nice to see that now, they have such positive role models like Diamond Joe Quimby.
Who shows up with a bunch of pre-waxed snakes right after Bart has convinced the town two love snakes again after he points out things like they helped out with one lady's rat problem. And Grandpa really didn't care. He's mad at everything except for Matlock, and since that's on, he left
it's
anyway.
on right now.
And finally, we get Barry White himself, who says, "Oh yes, I love the sexy slither of a lady snake."
Which is not the question they asked him, incidentally. But
not at all.
Barry White, he's got the ladies on the bread.
Which means he can tell the difference, which makes him a Beastmaster.
So the crowd is now mad that Quimby has killed these snakes, but Quimby's just like, "Oh my god, you guys are just a bunch of fickle mushheads." And they all pause for a second and go, "He's right!
Give us hell, Quimby!" Like, what? Incidentally, this plot would never make sense in 2017. The idea that someone read a fact in a book and that changed people's minds. Fucking what?
Never gonna happen.
That's an original idea.
Science fiction, goddammit.
The snakes go free, everything's back to normal, the Simpsons reset has occurred, and actually, to complete things, Skinner has noticed that Bart has done a remarkable job of learning outside of school, which is not necessarily the greatest thing a principal should be noticing, I'll point out. But he is so impressed he's going to invite Bart back to school to join his friends Jimbo and Nelson, and oh shit, he forgot about the bullies from the beginning. What to do. He actually gets Willie, and they load up his lawnmower, pulling the mountain bikes they were promised down the road.
Faster, Willie, faster! Now we give them the bikes and no one sues.
But what if they're dead?
Then we ride the bikes to Mexico, and freedom, Willie! Freedom!
Freedom. Yeah, I'm turning him in at the first toll booth.
Every part of that is outstanding. I'm so glad that we got to see Willie's apparently steam-powered tractor again. I'm such a big fan of this. Incidentally, anyone who writes their name down the side of their own car, I love you. Just personally speaking. Fucking, if it says, Terry on the side of your El Camino, me and you are homies. Straight up.
Of course. I even love that the Simpsons song, as it plays at the end, has a kind of a Spanish flair to it since they're on their way to Mexico.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, of course, the bullies have, had some serious breakthroughs. Maybe it's 6 weeks, the several days on crackers and water.
They're discussing their personal feelings and saying things like, "I think I'm mean to people because I'm hurt inside." And it's
I use violence because I need a way to express myself. Me too.
So all in all, Dr. Andrew Briseño picked one hell of an episode to join us for. That does bring us to the end of the episode Whacking Day. Andy, was there anything else that you wanted to share about this episode?
There is one serious thing that I have to bring to our attention, and that is the economic impact of what Lisa and Bart have done today. So, it seems so super casual, right? Oh, no big deal. They're going to end this festival, and now we're not going to hit snakes anymore. Okay, good. But, what did this festival mean to this town? I just want us to stop and consider the economic impact that ending Whacking Day is really going to have. As we mentioned earlier, there's clearly this whole cottage industry of supporting artists who paint wooden snakes for people to practice whacking, of weaponsmiths who create these whacking sticks. Homer even has a nice sack. He has a monogram.
And it's embroidered, yeah.
Yeah, a monogram sack that I think it says snake stick or something like that, indicating that there might even be a small business that exists exclusively for the purpose of providing tools for this particular festival. Obviously the whole town is involved. When you can see earlier, there's Whacking Day sales. Whacking Day is clearly a huge.
There's vendors on the square that are gonna, lose presumably a big day of business.
It's clearly a huge economic impact. I don't know. That's why I wanted to know what you think Barry White's appearance fee is, but it's not insignificant, right? Whatever you want to say about this, if they can pay Barry White to show up, that's not an insignificant thing. And for a town of Springfield's size, festivals like this can be a really important deal. So
it can make it or break it. Yeah, it can be the biggest day of commerce of the year.
Exactly. So I just want to stop and think of the economy.
Wow. Very deep.
Maybe in the future you keep Whacking Day, but change it from like snakes to like little wooden political figures or things like that.
Or just, masturbation. Because, God, there were so many jokes about it.
Oh, my God.
You just want to turn Whacking Day into a orgy, essentially.
I mean,
Even as an adult, it's hard not to laugh every time they said whack.
It's hard.
Episode. I found catching
What's
my...
what we're going to do without that money he gets from parking those cars in his yard? That's all I want to know.
That right there, I mean, that's Christmas right there.
Mm-hmm. That's where he
Especially with all
obviously
those
gets all
axles.
the money he wastes on all of these gambling propositions.
Let's be honest. Homer's not saving money from May 10th all the way to Christmas.
True.
That's
True.
true. He would definitely lose that.
That's just Moe's. That's just Moe's money.
Later
That is. So, Rich, was there anything else that you or that book of yours want to talk about?
Well, I already pointed out that I'm still an inappropriate adult with Whacking Day. The only thing that the book points out, The Simpsons: A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, that we did not mention ourselves, is that Barry White will also appear in Krusty Gets Canceled in the near future. So there's that to consider. Other than that, like we talked about, this was a really, really fun episode. We were getting to say that a lot in season 4. But the thing that caught me off guard is I didn't remember it taking so long to get into the Whacking Day storyline in this episode. Because like you said, it took at least a third of the episode before they even brought it up. And when it first got brought up, it almost felt like the beeline to the story. And it essentially was. And I didn't remember that part. I thought it was something right from the get-go where you've got the newscast on it. So I thought that was very interesting about how you remember something and then how it actually plays out.
I'm with you. There's
Kinda
a lot
like
less
Jebediah.
whacking. Yeah, there's a lot less whacking in Whacking Day than I remembered.
Yeah, I seem to remember much more whacking.
I mean, you can only whack every so often. You gotta give yourself a break, right?
Otherwise, chafage.
So the only thing I want to point out is that Whacking Day is actually inspired by a real life event that takes place right here in Texas. Sweetwater, Texas, actually. It's the home of the world's largest rattlesnake roundup. It happens every year, the second Saturday of May, I think it was, I read. That you might have to double check me on that if you're planning. Please don't plan your attendance to the event based on me saying that. Make sure you do some research.
Please don't plan your attendance to the event. Full stop.
Yeah, we can just stop right there. You're totally right. So actually, that's an interesting point that you make, though, because on their website, one of the things they include, Andy, is their economic impact. As of 2017, they just released 2015, so there is a couple years delay. They actually demonstrate the economic impact and what it does for the town. And now, I don't know if these people are scientists or rednecks or what, but there are many people who are trying to make the claim online that this is actually a positive impact for the ecosystem in the area. Again, I didn't have time to really dive into the credentials of the people saying that and seeing what the event is. It could clearly be a Cletus, for all I know, saying like, yeah, it's good for the environment when I cut the heads off them snakes. And the rattles taste good too. Which, for what it's worth, they do actually have a giant rattlesnake feast the night of the Whacking Day event, essentially. But basically everything that they did in this episode was based on a real-life event that does actually happen here in Texas every single year.
Wait a minute, so they're actually hitting rattlesnakes with sticks?
They round them up.
They actually hunt them. They cut them up. They
do.
kill them.
I mean, yeah.
They use a machete.
Many rattlesnakes were harmed in the making.
Miss Snake Charmer cuts the head off one of the videos I saw. Like they do a beauty pageant to name Miss Snake Charmer, and she was actually the person that cut off the snake later that day, the head of the first snake or whatever. But they have like snakeskin wallets there, and this is a video from 2011, and they said it was the 53rd annual one. So it's been going on for a long time.
And one of the events they actually have is guided hunts, where just people can come and go with quote-unquote professionals who will take them out to kill the snakes.
Now, I need to get in that line of work. I don't know how you become a professional snake hunt guide.
See, I see you as more of a snake coyote, just getting snakes out of the area, however you need to. And on that note, I think that is going to bring us to the end of our episode today. Andy, thank you so much for joining us again. And
I'm still laughing about Snake Coyote. Hold on.
We've got to talk about the streak, man. The streak is real. It is alive, and this thing could go on. I mean, when I think of great streaks, I think of the Chicago Cubs. that recently broke. I think of The Undertaker and his well, I don't want to talk about it, ended in a sad way, but my point is, your streak is alive and well, sir. Are we going to be able to keep that streak going into season 5?
I can't think of a real reason to say no
You're
yet.
trying as hard as you can, but you can't come up with
one. Come up with excuses to not be on the show for 4
Maybe
seasons.
if that Coyote career takes off, you just won't have
so
time.
Really, nothing's going to happen at this point. Why not?
22 weeks to figure it out.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. Is there anything that you want to plug or talk about before we're out of here?
Nah, I'm cool.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much. Richie, how about yourself, sir?
As always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at theWiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, follow our show as well. That's at bestdarndiddly. That's DIDDLY. And Andy, as Miles said, thank you very much for appearing for a 4th time. And we hope there's about 27 other times, because I assume that's about how long The Simpsons will last. I'm going 31 seasons, not 30.
Taking the over.
Yep.
Take the over on Simpsons. It's never going to be.
If you haven't by now, then you're a dummy.
Well, as for me, I am at MrMostDaysOff pretty much everywhere. You can also keep up with everything with our show at bestdarndiddly.com. You can reach us at bestdarndiddly@gmail.com, or, of course, at the Twitter and Instagram handles at bestdarndiddly. Other than that, we thank you again so much for tuning in to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. It's always our pleasure to talk about The Simpsons here with you today. The WizKid and I look forward to being back with you next week, when we're going to be discussing the episode Marge and Chains.
Ooh, I love that one.
Acte libre, it's not a booby.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.
It's a dragon! Disengage! Toaster? They're fighting! I wonder which thing is gonna win. Well, I know, my thing can beat your thing. Are you serious? A toaster can beat a dragon? Toasters can get really hot. Dragons breathe fire.
To see how this and other battles end, find My Thing Can Beat Your Thing on iTunes and Google Play, and send your Thing sightings to @ThingBeatsThing on Twitter. For MTCBYT News, I'm a news person.